أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وقال الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. Today I will share some of my reflections on Surah Nur. It was revealed in Medina. There's a lot in this surah. In fact, Imam al-Ghazali has written an entire book explaining just one verse from it, which is Allah Nuru Samawati wal Ard. But today we'll be focusing on a particular incident that happened to the Prophet ﷺ and his wife Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. It's a historical event, but the historical details are not given in the Quran. For this we have the hadith, and Ibn Shahab al-Zuhri has given a very detailed hadith which is present in Bukhari and other books of hadith about this incident. This incident is reported to have happened in the year 5th or 6th after the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, at the time of the Ghazwa Bani Mustalik. The Prophet ﷺ was coming back with this party. They were traveling at night, coming back to Medina. The Prophet ﷺ's habit was that he will take one of his wives with him on every journey that he undertook. And after becoming prophet, he didn't engage in any business journeys, business travel. He migrated from Makkah to Medina. That was the only travel he had after his prophethood while in Makkah. And then in Medina, anytime he went, it was for Ghazwa. And he took one of his wives with him. So it was Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's turn. And she was quite thin, not very bulky at the time. The reason Quran doesn't give much historicity on any incident is that this is not the purpose of the Quran. Quran has historical value, but the focus on morality is far more universal. So universality and historicity can sometimes run into conflict. The Quran was not revealed for one particular time, for one particular people, and for one particular purpose, but its emphasis is on morality. So we can read the historical details in the books of Sirah and the books of Hadith. In Quran, we are concerned about what lessons do we learn. Now, this incident is a very, very personal incident which affected the Prophet ﷺ and his wife Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and her parents for a month. The entire community of Muslims in Medina must have been in turmoil. One rumor, one gossip, and everything can come crashing down. And there were no witnesses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself revealed 10 verses from verses number 11 to 20 about this issue, clearing Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's name. But what they went through only they know and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. We can only judge it from the words which come in the different books of Ahadith. So the verse that I want to focus on is from 15. So what happened was that the party actually left before sunrise in the dark, and they would leave behind one person who will stay till the sun had arisen, and then he will look around and pick up things that may have been inadvertently left by people. Now during the night, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha had to go to use the bathroom. She went away from the caravan. When she came back, she found that the necklace which the Prophet ﷺ had given to her was not on her body. So she went looking for it, and by the time she returned, the party had already left. There is a book written by Leslie Hazlitt, After the Prophet. It's a very good book. Some of you may have already read it. The opening sentence, the book starts with, "It all started with necklace." And it talks about the differences between Aisha radiallahu ta'ala and Ali radiallahu ta'ala and other Sahaba. It's a good book to read in a literary sense. And there is a lot of history in it as well. But it's kind of interesting that the way she starts this book, it all started with a necklace. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala was quite smart. She didn't get anxious. She didn't panic. She didn't start running around. It was dark. And there was no way she could have caught up with the party who was traveling on camels and horses. So she said, "I will just stay put in my place. And when people find that I'm missing, they will come back to look for me." So she stood where she was. It was dark and she dozed off. By the time she woke up, it was sunrise. And she found Mista. Sorry, not Mista. It was Safwan, one of the Sahaba, who was left behind the party to pick up the things. And he looked at her and said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." He made his camel kneel so that she could get up, and he walked in front of her without even looking at her. Now, when they enter the Medina, you can imagine the scene. Here is the young, beautiful wife of the Prophet ﷺ on a camel and being escorted by a young, handsome man. Abdullah bin Ubay, the chief of the hypocrites, saw it as an opportunity to attack the honor of the Prophet ﷺ, but he was smart in the sense that he didn't come out himself. He had his 4 mouthpieces, which happened to be Sahaba, actually. Hassan bin Thabit, radiallahu ta'ala, he was the poet of the Prophet ﷺ. Hamna bint Jahash, radiallahu ta'ala, she was the sister of Zainab bint Jahash, who was the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, so his sister-in-law. Then Zayd ibn Rufa'a, and the 4th one was Mista bin Asasa. Mista was a cousin of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, whom Abu Bakr used to support financially. So they started to tell the stories to people, what could have happened. And obviously it affected the Prophet ﷺ very much, but he didn't talk to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala. She didn't even know what was going on, but she sensed a change in the way the Prophet ﷺ was behaving with her. And one day she said, I better go to my parents. She didn't know what was going on. She goes to her parents. Nobody tells her what's going on. Everybody stands on an edge. One night or one morning, she went to the bathroom again to use the bathroom outside the home with the mother of Mista, who was actually cousin of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. And when they were coming back, Mista's mother stumbled upon something and she said, "Curse be Mista." So mother cursing her son. This is where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala said something is going on. She said, "Why are you cursing your own son?" And she said, "Daughter, don't you know what he has been telling people about you?" And this is where she started to learn about what was going on. And the Prophet ﷺ was again in a puzzle. He consulted several people, including Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And this is where some of the conflict started between the two, but this is not the topic of the discussion today. So eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after 1 month, revealed 10 verses in which he exonerated Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. If you look at the Quran, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was exonerated by the testimony of a child. وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْهُمْ. A witness gave witness. There is a story in the hadith that there was some allegation against Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and a stone gave a witness. But Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, Allah himself. So now, after exonerating herself and proving her innocence beyond any shadow of doubt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this opportunity to give a lesson, a very strong lesson in morality, not only to the people of Medina, but for the rest of mankind, because he put these in the Quran. So, and it is very, very relevant to the times that we are going through. A lot of misinformation coming our way through social media that we forward without even thinking about it, that it may be ruining somebody's reputation, it may be injuring someone's character, it may be affecting someone's life beyond repair, and we may not even know about it. So, but it is our responsibility as educated people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in verse number 15, إِسْتَلَقَوْنَهُ بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَتَقُولُونَ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ مَا لَيْسَ لَكُمْ بِهِ عِلْمٌ وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا وَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. English translation. When you passed it from one tongue to the other and said with your mouth what you had no knowledge of, taking it lightly while it is extremely serious in the sight of Allah. Pikhal's translation, and I really like the way he translated, إِسْتَلَقَوْنَهُ بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. When you welcomed it with your tongues, you can feel the sarcasm and the pun in this translation, and uttered with your mouth that whereof you had no knowledge, yet counted it a trifle in the sight of Allah, it is very great. Now, just a few things about the style of the Quran, the way the Quran has been structured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you read any piece of literature, any text, any poetry, poem, anything, there are several things which critics will look at. One of them will be style. Is it a simple sentence? Is it a complex statement? Who is being addressed? In what way? What's the purpose of the speaker to the spoken? How would the spoken to will receive it? So there are many verses in the Quran which are very simple statements like Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaqa al-Insan. Very simple sentences. But then there are very complex sentences which are highly structured linguistically as well as in terms of their thought process. And one of the ijaz, one of the miracles of the Quran is to focus on some complex statements and see how a deep philosophy has been mentioned in one sentence. This is one sentence. Ayatul Kursi is also one sentence. Ayatul Dain is also one sentence. But look at the complex nature of the statement and the issues embedded in it. And this is beyond human composition. If you look at the hadith and you correlate with the verses of the Quran, you can see major difference between the two. So now we have to deconstruct this statement, and Yusuf Ali has done it, so it's Yusuf Ali's credit, to his credit that I'm mentioning. I'm just quoting him. There are three things here reprobated by way of moral teaching. So just by looking at the style of the verse, Yusuf Ali is focusing that this verse is one of reprobation. Second is by way of moral teaching. No punishment is mentioned here, but the punishment of people who made this allegation is called the punishment of qazaf, and which is 80 lashes, and this punishment was given to 4 individuals, including the woman. And then what do you do with them? That comes later. So first part, Yusuf Ali mentions, if others speak an evil word, that is no reason why you should allow it to defile your tongue. You know, you have received a news, you have received a gossip, a rumor. Most of the time, we don't even have the time to verify it. But our fingers start itching. We have to click the forward button. And then everybody else does, and it becomes a chain reaction. And we are part of that chain, and that chain will be held accountable. Second, he mentions if you get a thought or suspicion which is not based on your certain knowledge. Certain is the key word here. Do not give it currency by giving it expression. And he is explaining this, مَا لَيْسَ لَكُمْ بِهِ إِلْمٍ, and Surah Bani Israel also mentioned, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ إِلْمٍ. That do not take a stand, do not stand up. If you do not have certain knowledge, إِنَّ ظَنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. There are two things which are mentioned in that particular verse. There are things which are certain, absolutely certain, and there are things which are by way of speculation, conjecture, guesswork. And it doesn't stand in the light of reason. So if there is something which doesn't concern you, which is against reason, which could destroy someone, don't give it currency through your tongue or through your finger now. Thirdly, he says that others may think it is a small matter to speak lightly of something which blasts a person's character or reputation. And imagine this was Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the eyes of Allah, it's the most serious matter in any case, but especially when it involves the honor and reputation of pious women. If you look at Surah Nur, it is a very feminist surah. So is Surah Nisa. In fact, a French woman scholar, I forget her name, she mentioned when she read Surah Nisa, she said, if I didn't know that it was written by Muhammad, because she thought it was written by him, she said, then I would have thought that it was written by a woman. So Surah Bani Israel mentions, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ إِلْمٍ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلٌّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Three things are mentioned over here: Sam'a, Basr, and Fuad. Do not follow what you have no sure knowledge of. Indeed, all will be called to account for their hearing, sight, and intellect. If you look at the avenues of knowledge, how do we get knowledge? And even in philosophical terms, the knowledge can be from sensory perception, which is the Sam, hearing, and Basar. It can be based upon experiences, which is empirical knowledge. It can be based upon reason, which is philosophical knowledge. And then the third type of knowledge, they say, is the divine inspiration. There is no other source of knowledge of certain things. Neither sensory perception nor our limited intellect can lead us to discover those things. So here, the sensory part, hearing and looking, eyes can deceive us. Haynatul ayun, Quran mentions the cheating of the eye, the fallacies. We sometimes see a thing, but we see it only from one angle. A different angle is different. I think that you must have seen many things on Facebook or others where you are given one view of a picture and you try to guess and say what is going on, but you don't know the other part of it. And fuad is the intellect, the capability to reason, to use our reason. One of the reasons, one of the things why we are different, why human beings are different from animals, is the capability of reasoning things. And as they say, common sense is the most uncommon thing. Using reason to think is also a very uncommon thing. If something or some event goes against reason and is not beyond doubt, then it must not be publicized. Spreading this news was causing discomfort to the Prophet ﷺ, which the Quran describes as a very serious crime. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Surah Al-Azab, verse number 57. That indeed those who cause discomfort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody can cause a discomfort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, but he is mentioning in the context of the Prophet ﷺ. If he is attacked, Allah takes it personally. And his Prophet ﷺ, then Allah curses them in this dunya and the akhirah. And the concept of the word lana in Quran is to be away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To disqualify oneself of Allah's mercy. And without Allah's mercy, nobody can go into Jannah. Now, seriousness of a crime or a sin is not arbitrary or subjective. No criminal will stand in the court of law and say that, I really did something very bad, except when you are already been found guilty, and then you have to show remorse, as your attorney will tell you. But no one will plead guilty of a heinous crime. Those who commit a crime often dismiss it as something trivial or underestimate its significance. The harm done by just a rumor, just a gossip, can be enormous and may be hidden from the person who initiated it. These verses carry an emphasis on this aspect of an allegation that can be understood by knowing what the Holy Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu anha, as well as her parents, went through for about a month. And moreover, the entire community in Medina must have been in a state of turmoil at exactly what happened and what would it lead to. If Allah's testimony in favor of, it was Allah's testimony in favor of Aisha radiallahu anha that put out this fire, and this incident was used and highlighted as a lesson forever. Now, the next part, verse number 16, وَلَوْلَا إِسْسَمِعْتُمُوهُ قُلْتُمْ مَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَتَكَلَّمَ بِهَذَا سُبْحَانَكَ هَذَا بُهْتَانٌ عَظِيمٌ. So first is, why did you even forward it or spread the gossip, becoming participant in it? But what about those who did not participate in it? What did they do? So here this verse is addressing, why did you not, when you heard about it, implying that although you did not spread the gossip, but when you heard it, why did you not say it is not befitting for us to talk about it? Subhanaka, one translation is God forbid, another is glory to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a monstrous slander or a serious slander. So here the lessons that we learn are that it is a believer's moral duty to bethink himself of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remind himself or herself of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever we are tempted to listen to or to repeat a calumny, since every such rumor must be considered a calumny or a libel unless its truth is legally proved. So what could have been the right course for people who listened, who did not propagate it, but didn't do anything else? The right course would have been to stop any further currency of false slanders. By what means? The hadith is very clear about it. If you have the ability to stop with your hand, stop it with your hand. If you have the ability to speak up against it, speak up against it. And the third part is at least consider it to be wrong in your heart. And this is the weakest of the iman. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولذكر الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. The Prophet ﷺ has mentioned in a beautiful hadith, من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. It is from the perfection or beauty of the Islam of a person to give up what doesn't concern him. I mean, not everything that comes our way is worth wasting our time on it, let alone publicizing it, let alone forwarding it. Another part is to hide the deficiencies of people. We are all imperfect. And on the other hand, to highlight the good deed that someone else has done. There is a hadith which is very common among the Sufi, although the authenticity is debated. It is تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. What it means is mold your character according to the akhlaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now what does it mean? I may have done some mistake before coming here. You may have done it. What if it was being broadcast on a big screen here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do it. He can expose anybody. But He covers it. There are many people who go through their life committing sin after sin after sin, but it never comes to surface only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala covers it. So our responsibility is that if we hear anything being said about a brother or a sister, just keep it within yourself. Dismiss it from your mind. Don't keep thinking about it. Don't keep ruminating. Don't keep spreading about it. And hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do the same to us. Imam Razi has mentioned something very good that I want to quote in Arabic. وَالْأَقْلُ يَقْتَدِي التَّبَاعُدْ anhu. The intellect, the reason demands that one should stay away from such things. One should disengage. لأن القاذف بتقدير كونه صادقا لا يستحق الثواب على صدقه بل يستحق العقاب لأنه أشاع الفاحشة. Qazif is someone who is making an allegation, especially of a sexual contact, that even if he is right, if he has seen something obscene being done and he is publicizing it, he still doesn't deserve to be given a pat on the back. Indeed, he deserves to be punished for it because he is spreading an obscenity which is not his business. On the other hand, and if he is lying, then he is deserving of a greater punishment. The right course of action in the light of reason would be to stay away from such things. Even if something is true, don't give currency to it. It is simply a waste of time through which nothing good can come. And then the third part, I mentioned about the style of the Quran, which is oftentimes lost in the translation. But if you focus on the way the ayahs are structured, the words that are used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you know where to put the emphasis, you can really understand the gravity of the situation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, verse number 17 and 18, I'm sorry to raise my voice, but this is how this abada has to be understood. In kuntum mu'minin wa yubayyinu Allahu lakum al-ayati wallahu alimun hakim. Allah forbids you from ever doing something like this again. And if you don't put the emphasis on ever doing or abada, it doesn't really enter the heart. It doesn't appeal to the intellect as much. We can simply just go and read it and that's it, walk away. No, there is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this word, abada, never ever again. And Allah makes His commandments clear to you, for Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Now, so why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticize those who did not spread the news, did not even believe in it? The thing is that they knew that it cannot be true. How can the Prophet ﷺ marry a woman if she was not of a good character? Secondly, nobody ever saw such a thing. And they knew the character of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, they knew the character of the Prophet ﷺ, they knew the seriousness of the situation. They had the ability to stop this rumor there and then, rather than let it continue for a month. And that was the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used this surah and several verses to prevent such actions from happening again, where the reputation of an individual is being affected. Whether it's true or not is nothing like this. There is a hadith which I don't know the exact context, but it could have been related to that. And the words are again important, the way the hadith is structured, that Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ ascended his pulpit. So this could have been a Friday sermon, or as we know from the seerah that the Prophet ﷺ would call people to the Masjid of Nabawi ﷺ if there was something very serious going on, and he would ascend his pulpit. وَرَفَعَ فَنَادَ بِصَوْتٍ رَفِيعٍ. Then he spoke to them loudly. The Prophet ﷺ did not used to speak very loudly, except when it was something very serious. There were no loudspeakers in those days, and he wanted his voice to go to the back, but at the same time he wanted people to understand that loudness implies something very serious. Pay attention to it. And he said, Ya mashara man aslama bi lisanihi wa lam yufdil imanu ila qalbihi. Be addressed. Who is being addressed and how they are being addressed. As I mentioned, Quran's style, language, words, who is being addressed are very important. That all people who have believed with their tongues, but the iman has still not entered into their heart. Who is being addressed in Medina? Muhajirun and Ansar. Look at it. And then he said, La tuzil muslimina. Do not hurt the believers. Walam tu'ayyiruhum. Do not embarrass them. Sometimes when two people are talking, one said, oh no, I didn't go there yesterday, and the third one said, no, I saw you there yesterday. Maybe there is a reason why he's saying that I was not there yesterday. Don't embarrass him. Maybe he's not lying, maybe he doesn't remember it, but don't embarrass in front of others. Similarly, don't embarrass your children in front of their friends. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا عَوْرَاتِهِمْ. Do not go after their private matters. Do not try to expose them. Do not try to start finding faults. The yellow journalism, the fifth column journalism that has been going around. And then he says something which really frightens me. فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ تَتَّبِعَ عَوْرَةَ أَخِي الْمُسْلِمِ تَتَّبَعَ اللَّهُ عَوْرَتَهُ. Whoever tries to expose his brother, Allah can expose him. And then he said, وَمَنْ تَتَّبَعَ اللَّهُ عَوْرَتَهُ يَفْسَهُ وَلَوْ فِي جَوْفِ عَلَيْهِ. And if Allah goes after someone, He can expose him, that person cannot remain hidden. So we have to consider it. And then Ibn Umar said something which is also from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that one day he looked at the Kaaba and said, how great you are and how great is your integrity and honor. But the honor of a Muslim is far greater than your honor. I want to end this by saying something, that many of us fall for the bogus gossip and urban legends that flood the internet. We tend to become captivated by the explosion of information available, courtesy of the printing press and the universal use of social media. We have to realize that there is a massive amount of misinformation therein that is not to be trusted. We need to be skeptical of most of the news that comes our way and use common sense before forwarding and expressing our own views, colored by our urge to get involved. Disengagement is important. I would recommend that you read a book. I'm looking on the title, How to Do Nothing. Is one of my daughter gifted me that book. And there are some, there has to be some time in your 24-hour routine where you just do nothing. You put your cell phone somewhere else, go out in your backyard. If you have grandchildren or children, play with them for 10, 15 minutes. Don't even think about internet. And Ramadan is a good month to start doing this thing. It will also help lower your blood pressure. Scientific study. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا هب لنا من الصالحين ربنا هب لنا من الصالحين ربنا هب لنا من الصالحين إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد